So I'm not saying that Jennifer Hill was going to win Mother of the Year award. However, when in 2022, when she joins a lawsuit against the Kentucky Sheriff's Department, and then 7 days after being released from jail, she ends up dead. Well, maybe we should pay attention. The devil's in the details. Let's get into it this morning on the mysterious death of Jennifer Hill in early 2023. Now, I've covered the details about this before a little bit. We are covering the case of Mickey Stines in Kentucky, the sheriff at the time who shot the judge in the judge's chambers on camera. Everybody saw it, and there's no question what happened there. Well, there's questions about why it happened, but not necessarily who shot the judge. But we're covering this case in detail, and it relates to the case of Ben Fields, a deputy of that Sheriff Stines who shot the judge. Why? Because that sheriff was deposed in a case against Ben Fields. We're going to talk about that case against Ben Fields today. So if you're not following this case, you're confused a little bit already, you need to follow, like, subscribe to this channel and this playlist so you can get up to speed. I've covered a lot of this stuff already in big detail. So I don't want to cover all of it again. I am going to read through a document that's going to kind of summarize, and I'll have to explain to you major pieces of it as we read the document. But what I want to focus on is the clincher at the end about how Jennifer Hill had joined a lawsuit against Ben Fields, and by extension, the Kentucky the Letcher County Sheriff's Department, of which Mickey Stines was the sheriff at the time. When she joined that lawsuit, within 1 week of being released from incarceration, she mysteriously ended up dead after filing that lawsuit against the Letcher County Sheriff's Department. That should raise alarms. What should raise alarms as well is the fact that mainstream media has never questioned, apparently, how Jennifer Hill died. Everything that you find about Jennifer Hill is she just died. She died and charges were dropped. She died and charges were dropped. That doesn't sit well with people who have a questioning mind. Now I get a little bit of more information about how Jennifer Hill may have died. I have found new information through public records requests that have been filed. And that new information is a bit what I'm going to show you, is a little bit about maybe how Jennifer Hill died, or what the official cause of death is. Maybe we're going to look at some official documents that have been obtained through public records release on Jennifer Hill's story. The kicker, of course, of this video is that Jennifer Hill joined a lawsuit against the Letcher County Sheriff's Department, and then after joining that lawsuit, mysteriously 7 days after being released from custody on a home monitoring program, just ends up dead. And that should raise alarm bells. So let's get into it a little bit here real quick. I'm going to bring up some documents on, and the first one is going to be a bit lengthy, and then we're going to end with the proof of the dates of incarceration and death and how they line up, and then kind of summarize all that for you. So on screen, I'm going to show you now. We're not going to start with that. We're going to end with that. I don't know why I was on that page. We're going to end with that, what I just kind of briefly showed. This is from something that was filed on May 12th, 2025. So just this year. This is about the case of Sabrina Atkins and Jennifer Hill against Ben Fields and his official capacity as deputy sheriff of the Letcher County Sheriff's Department. Sabrina Atkins filed a lawsuit basically against Ben Fields, and by extension the Letcher County Sheriff's Department, claiming, among other things, that there was kind of this scam going on in the jail system and the court systems, in which women who are incarcerated would be let out on ankle monitoring systems. Ben Fields, a deputy of the Letcher County Sheriff's Department, would be appointed, for example, as their supervisor on home monitoring systems, and then would agree to arrange a deal. You have sex with me, and you don't have to pay for your ankle monitoring fees, and from time to time can get let off your ankle monitor in exchange for having sex with me. Ben Fields maintained through a criminal and now upcoming civil trial that all of this was consensual. I offered a deal. I want to have sex with you. You want to have sex with me. We can scratch each other's backs. There's nothing terribly illegal about that, although the courts disagree and think that it can go forward. And in fact, Ben Stines was pled guilty to multiple felony charges over his actions, while simultaneously continuing to maintain he really did nothing wrong. So we're going to get into a little bit about that again, because what happened is after Sabrina Atkins filed a lawsuit saying she was sodomized and raped in the judge's chambers by this deputy, and then after that, she brought on another individual who said, hey, the same things that happened to you happened to me. That other individual is Jennifer Hill, the subject of this discussion, the one who joined the lawsuit and then mysteriously just died, and all the charges were dropped in that case. Again, anyone with a questioning mind will say, already something smells shitty about that. Yes, Jennifer Hill has an arrest record. Yes, Jennifer Hill has drug history. Yes, some of the details are not going to be super pretty about the drug history. However, when girls get in trouble in this Letcher County, it seems there has been a coercive type scheme that works out deals with girls who have gotten themselves in trouble to exchange sex for privileges, like getting off their ankle monitor or getting free passes or not having to pay for the ankle monitor. So let's get into the details a bit more. This is an update, a memorandum in support of the motion for summary judgment. Now, it's going to get a little confusing, and I'll try to do my best to summarize it. Basically, Ben Fields, comes here, the defendant Ben Fields, individually, by and through his counsel, and for the memorandum brief in support of the motion for summary judgment. So what this is Ben Fields is trying to get a lot of stuff dismissed prior to the civil trial coming up. Ben Fields, again, has already been pled guilty and been convicted and served his time already, believe it or not. At least the incarceration period has already served his time for the criminal complaint about sodomy in the judge's chamber, among other things. But Jennifer Hill's story, who joined that lawsuit in March of 2022, she just died during this lawsuit that's still ongoing, the civil portion of this lawsuit. And he's going to continue, Ben Fields, through his attorney, argue that everything about Jennifer Hill should just be ignored because her complaints came too long ago. The family who's continuing to pursue the lawsuit doesn't know anything about the case and should basically let it go. And she's dead, so she can't speak for herself. So that is where we're going with that story. All right, so we're going to get into a bit of the details. Counsel, this is counsel for Ben Fields, first claims there are at least 3 women who were violated and sexually abused by Deputy Fields between 2019 and 2022. Some of the arrests that we're going to talk about happened before the document we're going to show about, which is Jennifer Hill's arrest record in 2022. So the basis of a lot of this happens prior to the records that we are going to show on camera into 2019 to 2020 timeframe. Are you confused? I'll try to get you there as soon as I can. There are 3 individuals. There's Sabrina Atkins, there's Jennifer Hill, and there's somebody that's referred to as BC. Later in this document, they'll give you that person's actual names. So let's continue with the details here. Besides Mrs. Atkins, counsel claimed that Jennifer Hill, so originally this lawsuit, way back in the day, in 2022, Sabrina started a lawsuit about what happened to her in the judge's chambers. And then again, like I said, Jennifer Hill joined that a couple months later. So besides Mrs. Atkins, counsel claimed that Jennifer Hill was victimized by the deputy. So she's the one that got added to the lawsuit. However, Mrs. Hill died before her deposition was taken, and the general allegations in her complaint have not been subject to cross-examination. Her son, Billy Dwayne Adams, serves as the administrator of her estate, but was unaware of this suit or any allegations made prior to his mother's death. And that's according to an exhibit, the deposition of Billy Dwayne Adams. Now, here's where I want to make sure you understand what's going on. Jennifer Hill, added to the lawsuit, just died. That's everywhere in this case. The wording is just, she just died. She just died. But they don't ever want to tell you how she died. They don't want to talk about her death. They just said, hey, she died, and therefore the charges should be dismissed because, well, she can't speak for herself anymore. That's an unfortunate byproduct of her death, is she can't speak for herself. So pretty much we have to just ignore everything that she would have said because she's dead. Now, the interesting part that's new in this document is what I didn't know until just this document was kind of reviewed, was that her son, Billy Dwayne Adams, has taken over to continue the lawsuit even after her death. How does that work? So Jennifer Hill, who was a plaintiff in this case against Ben Fields, died. However, the lawyers have taken up continuing the lawsuit on behalf of the estate of Jennifer Hill. So she's dead, but they can now substitute the estate of Jennifer Hill, of which her son, Billy Dwayne Adams, is going to be the representative. So they're going to continue with the lawsuit. So somebody might have felt, I don't know, but somebody might have felt that when Jennifer Hill died, that ended that lawsuit. But they're like, well, there's a loophole. We can continue this lawsuit on behalf of the estate of Jennifer Hill, and her son can administer the estate claim. Now, this similar thing, by the way, happens in another case that I follow. So if you're not aware, I am following the Long Island serial killer case. In that case, for example, Mary Gilbert, mother of Shannon Gilbert, was filing lawsuits trying to get to the bottom of what happened to her daughter in 2010. When Mary Gilbert was murdered, that claim went forward then in the estate of the estate of Shannon Gilbert. So that same kind of thing. Shannon Gilbert can't defend herself because she's dead. Her mother then was murdered. She's dead. So they still have the estate, and they just have a different person in control of who's going to represent the families that are deceased. Same kind of situation. I digress. Let's get back to this. Billy Dwayne Adams is going to come up. We're going to hear the name Adams. So when you hear Adams, it's Jennifer Hill's son. Okay. And the gist of this document, ironically enough, is going to be Jennifer Hill is dead, so she can't speak for herself. And nobody should listen to her son because her son doesn't really know jack and shit about this case. So this should really be dropped. Her son doesn't know anything, so he can't speak on behalf of his mother. So it should also be dropped. She's dead, and her son knows nothing about it. That's the gist of what this document is. The estate relies upon the affidavit of the Plaintiff Hill's fiance, Chris Triplett. However, the allegations made in this affidavit are not based on personal observation. So, yes, Jennifer Hill's fiance at the time of some of this said, hey, I came forward because I was made aware that my fiance, Jennifer Hill, was being sexually coerced or being coerced into sexual activity with Ben Fields, just like Sabrina Atkins. And so I know about this. I became aware of what was happening to my fiance, Jennifer Hill. And so he made all kinds of steps to try to report this to the proper authorities. The problem is that Chris Triplett said that the events happened too long ago in the past, and there's a statute of limitations on complaining about those kind of things. And therefore, the argument of Ben Fields is drop all of it. It's time barred. You can't, the statute of limitations has passed. So one, we deny anything ever happened inappropriate, and it's been too long. And by the way, did we mention she's dead? So the whole thing needs to be dropped because it's too old and she's not here to speak for herself and her son knows nothing about it. That's the case that we're going for. The third woman who's referenced in this thing is referenced by the initials BC, and we're going to get her name later when we're reading through things. BC's plaintiff's counsel has submitted a record interview of this supposed claimant in which she alleged that she was propositioned by Deputy Fields and that he made advances. Notably, the recorded interview was not taken under oath, nor was the witness subject to cross-examination. So this whole document is basically saying everybody who's got a problem with Ben Fields and what was happening with this home incarceration scheme of sex for getting off of your homeowner, all of it should be dismissed because one person didn't take their complaint under oath, another person's just died and it's been too long to complain, and we'll deal with the third person later, which is Sabrina Atkins. That we're going to set aside. It's too long, too complicated. We're only really concerned about Jennifer Hill's story. As for the criminal charges, it should be noted that Mr. Fields' guilty plea was part of a negotiated settlement reached during mediation. So criminal charges against Ben Fields have already been settled. He pled guilty to criminal charges. It was a plea deal, and that part's been done. What Ben Fields is asking for via his attorneys here in this document is for the civil part. So there's a criminal case, and that's done. He's already been convicted of felonies. Now there's a civil case, which is we want to sue the department, Ben Fields, Nikki Stines, the Letcher County Sheriff's Department. We want to sue them for a huge amount of money so that they never do this kind of shit to anybody again. That civil trial is what he's trying to get dismissed. And that civil trial is what Ben Fields is facing in March, coming up here soon. And so he's trying to get stuff dismissed so that the civil trial doesn't go forward. Statement of cause. On January 31st, 2023, plaintiffs Sabrina Atkins and Jennifer Hill filed a complaint against a defendant, Ben Fields, individually and in his office or official capacity as the deputy sheriff with the Letcher County Sheriff's Department. Now, I want to clarify something real quick, just because the devil's in the details. Sabrina Atkins did file that lawsuit against Ben Fields on January 31st, 2022. However, Jennifer Hill didn't get added to that complaint until March 2022. So this is an important distinction. This will make it sound like both Sabrina Atkins and Jennifer Hill filed the complaint. Really, the complaint was filed in January by Sabrina herself, and then it was amended to add Jennifer Hill in March. Nitpicky, but I want you to understand the details as I understand them. All right. As it relates to the plaintiff, Mrs. Hill, that's the subject of this whole video, Jennifer Hill. As it relates to plaintiff's Mrs. Hill, she alleged that she was arrested in Letcher County in 2019 and incarcerated at the Letcher County Detention Center. In August of 2022, she was put on home incarceration and was to be supervised by defendant Ben Fields. When Fields met with Jennifer to place her ankle monitor, he allegedly told her that if she could not afford to pay the home incarceration fees, that they could work something out. He also allegedly told her that if she did him a favor, he would do her a favor. So this is the whole basis of the claim. And we've covered it in detail in other documents, so I don't want to have to prove to you how much meat it has. Ben Fields, of course, is going to soften the whole thing. Well, allegedly, this is what happened, but we cry bullshit. Well, we've dived into the details on other videos, and so if you want the details about the whole scam and how it works, you need to watch those, because I don't want to repeat it all again now. So the point being is that Ben Fields is saying allegedly this happened, but we cry bullshit. Again, remember, he was convicted and pled guilty to felony charges on this whole thing, so put that aside too. Therefore, Jennifer Hill claims that defendant Fields began asking for sex in exchange for a waiver of incarceration fees, and she declined his advances. She claims that after she declined his advances, that he created home incarceration conditions violations, which resulted in her arrest. So that is the basis of the gist. So Ben Fields asked Jennifer Hill for sex, said we can work something out. She said no. And so he created situations in which she would get busted for violating her home incarceration. And then he would use it to arrest her, to put pressure on her to comply with his request for sex. So if she didn't play games, or if she didn't play ball with this request for sex, he would arrange situations in which she would get arrested again for violating her home monitoring program. That's what you need to understand. That's just the if you want the details, go back to watch the previous videos. Now, on August 17th, 2021, Jennifer was arrested, and soon thereafter, she was bonded out of jail on the condition that she would comply with home incarceration. So this is leading up to when the sexual abuse allegations happened. So in 2021, she was released from some stuff and put on home incarceration. Within a few days, she claims that Fields showed up at her home with Sheriff Mickey Stines, claiming that she had an overdose. Jennifer claims that EMS personnel therefore arrived at her home and threatened to give her a drug screen, and that only after emergency workers had left, Fields again told her that she needed to succumb to his sexual advances. She claims she involuntarily complied with Fields' instructions and engaged in sexual acts with the defendant. So what's going on here? Again, she was put in a home monitoring situation. Fields is asking her to have sex in exchange for getting off her home monitoring and other favors. She says no. And at some point, the deputy, Ben Fields, and the sheriff, Mickey Stines, who ends up shooting the judge, all of it's related. I'm telling you, all of it's related. Mickey Stines is the main case we're covering. Mickey Stines that shot the judge. But why did he shoot the judge? It's all about this event, in my opinion. So Mickey Stines and Ben Fields, his deputies, show up at Jennifer Hill's house, claiming that they heard that she was overdosed, which she claims was bullshit. They just came to harass her. They simply came to harass her. And then later, when people left, after they had the official reason to come check on her welfare, he privately told her, "You better shut your mouth about shit and have sex with me." Of which it says she actually then succumbed to that pressure and had sex with him. So he's basically forcing her into things by showing, I'm going to harass you. Your shit, bad shit's going to happen to you. And so she did have sex with him, which of course Ben Fields will use on the Sabrina Atkins case, that kind of stuff. Hey, she wanted to do it. She could say no. Ben Fields is going to maintain the entire time on Jennifer Hill's case that none of what she said happened. It's not true, and you can't prove it because she's dead. All right. The unwanted sexual abuse continued through October of 2021, at which point Jennifer was incarcerated for traveling to London, Kentucky to visit her newborn granddaughter. She claims in the presence of Deputy Sheriff Whitaker that defendant Fields told her, "Remember what I told you to keep your mouth shut." She claims that when she was arrested in October of 2021, that her cell phone had been confiscated and never returned to her because it had incriminated communication between herself and defendant Fields. Same kind of thing happened to Sabrina Adkins. These women were texting the deputy, exchanging flirty type sexual messages as part of their ongoing relationship, which was, you make me happy, I'll make you happy. And so the allegation is at one point, Ben Fields got her phone and erased the text message history between the two of them. So she couldn't use it at trial to say, look, there's an ongoing relationship between the two of us. Again, Ben Fields, by the way, does have text messages against him, against Sabrina. And he just says, look, you can see by the nature of the text message, she's flirting with me. So she likes me. There's a lot here. I understand there's a lot to unpack. So I hope that I'm making some sense to you of what's going on. According to the complaint, she was arrested in February of 2022. Now we're getting up to the time of death. We're getting up to 2022, the incarcerations in 2022, and then her untimely death at the very, very beginning of 2023. That's what the whole key of this document is. So according to this complaint, she was arrested in February of 2022. This is getting to be the year before her death. Almost exactly 1 year before her death, because she dies on January 19th, 2023. So here's the incarceration on February 2022. So almost 19 months, or is it the other way around? 20 or 13 months. Anyways, it's a year. So according to the complainant, she was arrested in February 2022 on an arrest warrant from another county and remains housed at the Perry County Detention Center. Like Atkins, she claims to suffer emotional distress and mental anguish. Jennifer Hill, subsequently died, and her estate was substituted as the plaintiff, or the party plaintiff. So again, Jennifer Hill died, and now her son has taken over to continue the lawsuit on behalf of his mother, but maybe under sketchy circumstances. We'll get to that in a minute. On or about January 19th, here's her death. On or about January 19th, plaintiff Jennifer Hill died. That's it. Died. No explanation, just died. So, on or about January 19th, 2023, plaintiff Jennifer Hill died. By order entered in on August 9th, after her death, in a certain district court, Jennifer Hill's son, Billy Adams, was appointed as the administrator of the estate of Jennifer Hill. So the estate of Jennifer Hill is going forward with the lawsuit, and the administrator of that estate is her son, Billy Adams. On August 18th, plaintiffs filed a motion to substitute the estate of Jennifer Hill as a party, and court subsequently granted that motion. So somebody who may have thought with the death of Jennifer Hill comes the end of that lawsuit, didn't maybe foresee the option that the estate of Jennifer Hill, administered by her son, could continue with the lawsuit. So what happens now? Well, hopefully nothing horrible. All right, continuing on. Now we're going to talk a little bit about Billy Adams and Ben Fields' complaint about her son. Adams offered little to no information regarding allegations raised by his mother, Jennifer Hill, in her complaint. He confirmed that he is the administrator of his mother's estate. He testified that he did not have much of a relationship with his mother. In fact, he last saw her in 2020. He testified that he last saw her in 2020 because he did not want her lifestyle of drugs around his children. He suspected that she died of an overdose. Now, this is one of the first moments we've had any indication of how Jennifer Hill died. However, all it says is her son suspected she died of an overdose. That's the first of any kind of indication of how Jennifer Hill died. And I was going to say, if I were a betting man, I would say, being that she has a history of drugs, someone's going to say, oh, she OD'd. They've already established she had a drug history. They've gone out on calls saying that maybe she OD'd. And so I wouldn't be surprised that she died of an OD. This is a common tactic you see in TV. There you go. We'll say that. This is a common tactic you see in TV. Who's going to believe the word of a junkie? If a junkie ends up dead, nobody's going to believe it wasn't anything other than what it is. A junkie ended up dead. It's called when it's done in a movie to kill somebody, we call it giving them a hot shot. What it means is you give them an overdose on purpose. The law enforcement, for example, or somebody who wants them dead, gives them a hot shot, a huge dose of drugs to kill them, and then says, well, they're a fucking junkie. What are you going to do? Of course they ended up overdosing. They're a junkie. So, and by the way, as an aside, in the Long Island serial killer case, there's a story that I've told before about an individual that was in jail, and they threatened to kill him. They said, we're going to give you a hot shot. We're going to kill you. You're a junkie. No one's going to not believe us if we kill you. So you better shut your mouth about something that you're accusing the chief of police of. If you don't shut your mouth, you're going to get a hot shot, and you're just going to end up dead, and nobody's going to believe that it wasn't anything other than you're a fucking junkie. So that's happened in other cases that we're covering. So, long way of saying, we may now have a tip on how Jennifer Hill died. Her son suspects it may have been an overdose. So, how much does her son know? I don't know. Now, Billy, this is her son still, had no knowledge as to Hill's medical or counseling history. He also had no knowledge about the facts of the case or any knowledge about her incarceration. He also had no knowledge about her suspected criminal history. He would only learn about the case after Jennifer's attorney reached out to him in the past year. He confirmed that Jennifer lost custody of him and his siblings in 2014. She would never again gain custody of her children, as they would live with Ryan. He has not spoken to his siblings about this case and did not know most of the individuals that are listed in her Jennifer Hill's report, such as Johnny Potter, Betty Jo McKenzie, Ethan McKenzie, Devin McKenzie, Paula Campbell, Anthony Potter, Bert Sloan, Angie Fields, who happens to be the wife of Ben Fields, the one that they're filing a lawsuit against, because Jennifer Hill alleged that when she was in incarceration, she would be taken out by Ben Fields' wife, Angie Fields, and they would basically, off camera, basically coerce her into continue to shut the fuck up about things, is what her allegation was. And so, yes, I've reached out to public records about Angie Fields and Ben Fields' visits to Jennifer when she was incarcerated, because she claims that they basically came and visited her regularly in there and would take her to try to use her against other inmates, because Ben Fields was using this scam against female incarcerated women. So they would actually take her out of her prison cell or whatever, and they would talk to her about what information she can give them about other female inmates. That was some of the allegations that came forward. Anyways, I digress. There's a couple other names, and then Chris Triplett, which was Jennifer Hill's fiance at the time, the guy who said, hey, I became aware that Jennifer Hill was being coerced by the deputy and to have sex with him while I was her fiance. He complained about it, but apparently he complained about it too late. The statute of limitations had gone by. Chris Triplett only knew about this sexual allegation happening in 2019. And by the time he came forward, statute of limitations ran out, and therefore they said, you can't talk about it. And that a judge agreed with. Too old, you can't talk about it. Anything else Jennifer has to say about, we don't get to talk about because she just died. Billy, her son, testified that he had no idea about the amount of damages being sought in the case, and that's according to his deposition. One of the key factors that they're trying to point out, one of the things that Ben Fields' attorneys are trying to point out, is that essentially Billy knows nothing. So drop the case. Billy is the administrator of his mother's case, but he knows nothing about it. He knows nothing about his mother's criminal history, really. He knows nothing about the allegations of the sex crime. He cannot effectively represent the estate of Jennifer Hill, his mother, in this case, because he knows nothing. And in fact, the only reason he's on here, and this is the kicker, is that Jennifer Hill's attorneys, after she died, came to him and said, will you represent her estate so that we can continue with the lawsuit? So Ben Fields' argument is, look, this is a no-starter. Jennifer Hill's dead and her son knows nothing. Drop this lawsuit. Are you following? So just every step of the way, Ben Fields is making sure to try to make sure Jennifer Hill's testimony won't come in. Now, there was some extra details that I want to kind of get to the end quickly now, because we're kind of like, a lot of this might be just me talking about a case that I've talked about a lot, and you should know these details and you can catch it in another video. But there was some new details like this one that came out just kind of in periphery. So I want to cover some of these new details somewhere. This is where we're going to do it. Ben Fields met Mickey Stines, the sheriff who shot the judge in the judge's chambers. That's what this whole case started with, is me covering the Mickey Stines case. Ben Fields met Mickey Stines when Stines was a bailiff This is before Mickey Stines became sheriff. So Mickey Stines was a bailiff, and Ben Fields worked at the jail. Remember, also his wife may work at the jail. They developed a friendship. Ben Fields, the subject of this lawsuit, and the sheriff, who at the time was just a bailiff at the courthouse, developed a friendship back in the day. Ben would often go to Stines' house for poker parties. So now, for the first time in this document, a peripheral document, we're finding out what the relationship is between Mickey Stines and Ben Fields. It's super, super important because Mickey Stines, again, shot the judge, killed the judge. He's on trial, going to be on trial for the murder of the judge in the judge's chambers. But it all has to do with his deputy, Ben Fields, in this lawsuit. I'm telling you. Stines later approached Ben about a job if he won election for a sheriff. So Mickey Stines said, hey, I'm running for sheriff when he was a bailiff. Hey, I'm running for sheriff. If I get it, would you like a job? When he did win, Ben Fields went to work for Mickey Stines in 2019. This is leading up to everything that happened when I shot the sheriff. Oh, it's backwards. The sheriff shot the judge. I can't resist. Anyways, Stines later got him the job at East Kentucky Corrections Solutions, or EKCS. You see that a lot in other documents I've covered, so we're not going to spend a lot of time on it. In 2019, he shadowed Stines to learn how to do the job. So Stines was working as a bailiff and knew how to do a job for the correctional facility. When Stines got promoted to sheriff, or won election as the sheriff, he hired Ben Fields to do his job that he was doing before at the correctional facility. This all leads to, did this ever happen under Mickey Stines, this scam? He taught this deputy what he knew. I don't know. That's a question we'll have to find out later. He knew both Judge Mullins, that's the judge that was shot and killed, and Judge Kraft in their capacity of judge, but not outside the courtroom, according to Ben Fields' testimony or deposition. All right. Ben Fields will testify that he never had any sexual contact with anyone that he arrested as a deputy, and that his arrest powers was only inside the courthouse. He admitted to having sexual contact with Sabrina Atkins, but denied ever having sexual contact with Brianna Cornett. Remember, there was a third person in the lawsuit by the initials BC. Here it is. Brianna Cornett is the third individual. Again, new information coming out in this document of who that redacted name BC is. So the third party is Brianna Cornett. Or Jennifer Hill. So Ben saying, I never had sex with Brianna Cornett. I never had sex with Jennifer Hill. I'll admit I had sex with Sabrina Atkins, and I've been convicted of those charges. So as we're going forward with the civil charges, he's basically saying, look, I deny anything happened with Brianna Cornett. I'm really worried for Brianna Cornett's safety, by the way, because now that Jennifer Hill's been killed and Brianna's out there still, what's Brianna's story? I haven't dived into that yet. Ben Fields admitted to going to Jennifer Hill's residence. So again, now we're back to Jennifer Hill, and we're going to try to get up quickly to her death. Ben Fields admitted to going to Jennifer Hill's residence when there was a call that she was lying on the road in an overdose, but he was in his truck, not in his police cruiser. So Ben Fields admitting this story about somebody calling in an overdose and him going there, which she claims is when he told her, you better shut your mouth and you better have sex with me because this kind of shit's going to continue happening. He denied having any sexual conduct with Jennifer Hill and denied going to her house again and making her get inside his vehicle. Because that's what happened. She said after everybody left, he coerced her into having sex, and they had sex that day. So they came there on the false pretext that she overdosed. They came with EMS. By the way, I've got public records requests in to talk about, hey, where's the call log that you got called to Jennifer Hill's house on an overdose? Because everyone, even Ben Fields admits that happened, and she did. So I want to get the EMS. So I got a lot of public records requests. And by the way, sketchy shit's going to happen in my life, I guarantee you, as I get into this case. Anyways. So he denied that after everybody left, after that drug call in of overdose, after everybody left, he coerced her into having sex in his vehicle. He denied that happened. And of course, now that she's dead, she can't talk about it. When about her release from jail and whether or not her cell phone was returned to her, he had no knowledge. So the whole allegation that he took her phone and wiped her phone so he could hide their conversations, that has been ignored. There's a section here about Patty Stockham, who is in charge of that EKCS, where Ben Fields was working with girls in incarceration. There's a lot of stuff here. I've decided, in the sake of brevity, we're going to not cover this. I have it highlighted, but I'm looking at the time. We're 34 minutes in. I feel like I've already lost a lot of you. I'm probably not being super coherent for you. So I'm going to go ahead and skip that part, even though it had some interesting shit in it, just for the sake of brevity. It's not super important, and it would just delay. As for Hill, so Jennifer Hill, Ben Fields has denied any wrongdoing, let alone sexual encounters with her. Every part of this, he denies he ever had any kind of sexual relationships with her. And how could she say differently? She's dead. And anything she said about that sexual activity or her fiance triplet prior is time barred. It's too old. So basically saying all the allegations, they're too old, and you can't talk about anything new because she's dead. Thus, the objective element has not been met by the plaintiffs on count 1 against Ben Fields in his individual capacity, and it must fail. So her complaint must fail because she's dead and the time's over. As referred to later in the memorandum, Chris Triplett's statements regarding Hill's knowledge of these claims are time barred. So again, anything that was said by her fiance saying he knows about it, it's too old, it's time barred, you can't bring it up. Anything new, you can't talk about because she's dead. I think at this moment, we could get into a lot more details than I was going to. But again, I want to wrap this up for you quicker than I got. I'm going to read one section. This is an actual, I got several. So what I had requested was, and we'll skip to this for a moment. What I had requested was this. I wanted to find out about the death of Jennifer Hill. So I asked the Kentucky River Regional Jail System for public records about Jennifer Hill's incarceration. And they gave me and whether she died. And that was what I asked. I asked, can you tell me when she was incarcerated and did she die in custody? Because I don't even know when she died. I don't know if she died in custody or she died out of custody. The kicker is she died 7 days after being released. Here's what they told me. This is what we know about Jennifer Hill. She was incarcerated on these dates: February 4th, 2022 through April 1st, 2022. The lawsuit where Jennifer was added to the lawsuit against Ben Fields happens during that first incarceration, February 4th through April 1st, from what I understand. Again, January, before this incarceration, Sabrina Atkins filed a lawsuit against Ben Fields for being sodomized in the judge's chambers and among other things. That was filed before Jennifer's incarcerated on February 4th. On February 4th, Jennifer's incarcerated. And in March, during that incarceration between February and April, so March would fall between there, Jennifer was added to the lawsuit saying, yeah, the shit you're talking about in that lawsuit, that happened to me too back in the day, 2019 arrests. So now she's arrested in 2022. She's talking about things that happened to her back in 2019, which again, Ben Fields will say is time barred. Happened too long ago. You can't talk about it. And you can't talk about it now because you died. They also informed me that she was incarcerated from September 5th through October 11th of 2022 and October 19th through January 12th, 2023. Let's save that for the end scenario. When I requested information about her arrests and her incarcerations and her movements within the jail, who visited her to try to find out, was Ben Fields wife really visiting her, I found this paragraph about an arrest. Now, this paragraph I'm going to read is going to contain some personal information, but it's out in the open and she's dead. And I apologize to the family of Jennifer Hill. It does contain some unsavory type information about Jennifer Hill's actions on the arrest. Keep in mind, this is the arrest. It doesn't necessarily mean it happened this way. This is what they wrote on the arrest. And already we know that this case is full of maybe bad actors in law enforcement. So take that with a grain of salt. But what you're going to hear is going to be is one sentence I just don't like. It's really personal. It is what it is. But I wanted to cover the only written description of any kind of behavior about Jennifer Hill. It appears from the history of her arrest record that she had a substance abuse problem with methamphetamine, among other things. So, and that's part of this documentation. So I want to read it, and then we're going to read about her death. And again, her son says, Adams says, I suspect my mother died of an overdose because she's got a drug history, but he knows very little about it other than his mom had drug problems and he didn't want his children around drugs. That was stated as well. And so he hasn't seen her for a long time. Let's read about this arrest record. And I was trying to find the booking time. This is, I think, from the September 15th 12/22 booking time, and this was a description in here. I think that's when that falls. So this is a description of what happened. Received a call to the Daniel Boone Motel of a male and a female that had been asked to leave and were continuing to stay at the premises and were suspected of breaking into a bar beside the hotel earlier this date. The caller advised that the two were outside arguing at the time. I located the two suspects. So this is a statement by the officer. I located the two suspects walking on the side highway of Highway 15 in front of the Hilltop Liquor Store. Upon contact, above was manifestly, so above meaning Jennifer Hill, that's who this is arrested for. Upon contact, the above, Jennifer Hill, was manifestly under the influence of what appeared to be meth. She was sweating profusely, talked quickly, and could not control her body movements. While I advised her of the complaint and asked her for her ID, she provided me the name of Michelle Hall with a date of birth of 11/7/1981. I then asked how old she was, and she started counting on her fingers trying to figure it out. No ID could be found with the name or birth date that she gave. After some investigation, I confirmed that her name was the one listed above, Jennifer Hill. So she gave him a false identification and couldn't tell how old she was because she didn't do the math, and learned that she had a warrant for her arrest. I advised her multiple times on the way to the jail to produce any controlled substances before going in, or she would be charged. I searched my rear seat upon getting her out of the car, and she again stated that she did not have anything. However, upon entering the jail and being searched, a baggie of apparent crystal meth, a baggie containing multiple Suboxone tablets, a small glass bottle containing pieces of Xanax tablets, and a glass meth pipe were found in her vagina. So that's the subject. The thing I was thinking is awfully personal information, but I wanted to explain the one piece we have of her drug history, the methamphetamine, sweating profusely. So there's history of drug arrests. And again, her son's going to say, I think she may have died of a drug overdose, which again, maybe, or if you believe TV type things, some people are given hot shots. And it doesn't even have to be TV because again, literally the chief of police in Suffolk County went to jail over threatening, essentially the things are threatening that inmate, saying they're going to give him a hot shot and kill him, or they're going to kill his mother. That led to a jail sentence. But it was that event. That was that event where this inmate was harassed, beaten, told that they were going to kill him, and they would give him a hot shot, and nobody would believe that it was anything other than that because he's a fucking junkie. That's what allegedly is happening maybe here. Jennifer Hill was brought in multiple drug charges. She's joining a lawsuit against the Letcher County Department. She was told to keep her fucking mouth shut. And I might allege somebody might have told her, or you'll just fucking have a drug overdose. And nobody will believe otherwise because you're a fucking junkie. All right. The ending statement for today. So February 4th, 2022 through April, that's when Jennifer joins the lawsuit. She was incarcerated again between September 5th through October 11th, 2022 for another incident. That's when we see that arrest about the drug thing that we just read a minute ago. And then she was incarcerated again from October 19th because basically a warrant violation. So she got released on this and within a week was put back in jail for a violation of her release terms. So October 19th through January 12th, 2023. January 12th, 2023. According to this, there was no in-custody death regarding Mrs. Hill after her last incarceration. She was released on the Home Incarceration Program, or HIP, through the Department of Corrections. 7 days later, after her release, she's dead. And they still don't talk about what happened. They don't give us the details. Her son suspects maybe she had an overdose. You join a lawsuit. You tell them they're setting up situations in which you'll be arrested and put back in jail. She's arrested for violating something and gets put back in jail. 7 days after she's released, she's dead. And that's the end of the story for them. Hope you're paying attention.